My mother and sister have used me as their personal ATM for years. But I cut them off financially, and now they're telling lies and starting fake fundraisers saying I abandoned them when they made me their scapegoat. My sister's crocodile tears on Instagram are raking in donations while I'm blocking everyone's numbers. I'm a pilot for a small charter company out of Orlando. Good money, insane schedule, but I love fucking flying. Always have. My grandpa Roy was a pilot in the day, Vietnam, followed by commercial, and pretty much raised me on Tales of the Heavens when I was a kid. Although he lived separately later on, we always maintained a close relationship throughout my life. As a kid, while everyone was playing video games, I was building model planes and memorizing flight manuals. Pathetic, I know, lol. But it got me where I am. I still remember the smell of balsa wood and glue in our garage as Grandpa assisted me in building a P-51 Mustang model when I was 9. That same model still hangs in my apartment. Well, I suppose it's the only thing inside my apartment that's actually mine, given that I've been financing everyone else's stuff all along. My family dynamic is complicated. Dad left when I was 11. Haven't heard from him in years. My mom, Ellen, 55F, is a single parent who raised me and my sister Tara, 28F, alone, and it wasn't easy. Money was always tight. We moved a lot, the usual single-parent struggle. I got my first job at 15 and put myself through flight school with loans and terrible hours at a bunch of side jobs. It took years. Flight training started at 18, and I worked my way up through small gigs before landing my first decent-paying pilot job 7 years ago at 28. It was brutal, but worth it. My first solo flight is notorious in my memory, as was the sense of pure freedom I was feeling knowing what I worked through at that point to earn each one of those seconds of freedom. If I had just exercised that same independence in my family relations, perhaps I wouldn't have gotten into this mess. The moment I had my first decent-paying pilot job, around 7 years ago, I started helping Mom with bill pay. Nothing big at first, just a few $100 here and there when she was short on rent or whatever. Then it grew. And grew. What started as occasional help became thousands of dollars, and over time the amounts became astronomical. And somehow, I ended up paying almost all her bills. Mortgage, car, insurance, utilities. We never actually signed off on this. It just kind of happened. Like, Caleb, the electric bill is due, and I'm a little short this month, became automatic payments planned out from my account for literally everything. And every time it would involve tears and, I don't know what I'd do without you. And, you're the man of the family now, all the shit that made me feel as if I was doing the right thing, like I was a good son. I specifically remember the first big expense. Mom's AC unit broke in the middle of a Florida summer 5 years ago. Anyone who's made it through August in Orlando knows that is more or less a life-threatening emergency. She called me crying about the heat, how she couldn't afford the $3,000 repair, how she might have to go stay in a motel she also couldn't afford. I was connecting through Dallas, and I wired the money right away. The relief in her voice, when she called me her hero, damn, that felt good. Little did I realize I was merely taking the first hit of a very, very addictive drug. Family approval. My sister Tara? She's an influencer, or trying to be one at least. Instagrams with like 12K followers that are all just about fashion shit and day-in-the-life stuff. She has never had a real job for longer than a few months. She lived with Mom until last year, when I helped her get an apartment. And by helped, I mean I paid the security deposit, first/last month's rent, furnished the whole damn place, and then I've been paying half her rent every month since. Hammered down, blacked out, papered over, and then, somehow, permanent. That apartment, by the way, it's one of those luxury complexes in downtown Orlando with a rooftop pool and a fucking doorman. When I first spotted it, I asked if she might find something less expensive. She cried and said that this was the only place that had good lighting for her Instagram photos, and how could I do this to her career like that? So I gave in. I actually live in an old, basic one-bedroom next to the airport, but I pay for that because it's near work and I'm never home anyway. The irony? I don't even have a pool, and I'm paying for my sister to go work from one she spends most of her time using for bikini pics to get followers. Life is good when I'm in the air. I'm great at my job. I get along well with my co-pilot Brad, 33M. The views are amazing, and I feel free, you know? But every time I land, my phone lights up with family emergencies that always end with me sending them money. Caleb, Tara's car is broken. She needs $2,000 to fix it. Caleb, the roof is leaking. I need 5 grand for a new one. Caleb, Tara has a brand opportunity, but needs camera equipment. And I just paid it. Every time. Because they're family, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? With having to work back-to-back shifts just to support 3 adults, myself included, I never had time for a relationship or time to establish my own life. When friends would ask about all my flights, I'd joke about how I was saving for retirement. But if I'm honest, my goal was keeping the family afloat. I've done this so long enough for it to become routine. In the way that the humidity in Florida is just something that becomes part of your life after a while. You don't even notice it until you go somewhere else and realize suddenly, holy shit, I can breathe here. That's more or less what happened to me. I had been living in my situation for so long I couldn't see how suffocating it was. I actually bought Mom a new car last Christmas. Not a cheap one. A damn $45,000 SUV that she had been eyeballing. I had to book additional flights for 3 months in order to be able to afford it. Overnight cargo runs, holiday shifts no one wanted, you name it. I missed Thanksgiving entirely because I was flying some rich family to Aspen while my own mom was texting me pictures of the exact model and color she wanted for Christmas. I expected her to be overjoyed, perhaps finally realize how much I was giving up. Do you know what she told me when I handed her the keys? Oh, this is nice, but I wanted the one with the premium package. That's it. No thank you. No appreciation. Just disappointment that I hadn't spent even more. I shrugged it off at the time. I told myself she was just surprised or something. God, I was such an idiot. I've missed weddings and holidays to fund their lifestyle. Last year, I had to cancel a trip with this girl I was seeing, remember, because Mom had some emergency dental work and her insurance didn't cover any of it. The girl broke up with me, quite fairly. Turned out Mom got veneers. Veneers. Not even close to a medical necessity. I only learned about it when she was posting pictures of her new smile on Facebook, bragging about her smile makeover. She recalled staring at those photos, feeling this strange cocktail of anger and confusion, and then swallowing it down because family first, right? That was the breaking point about 2 days ago. I was somewhere on a 48-hour layover in Miami. Always nice to have that much downtime. And scrolling through Instagram when I saw my sister post a new story. She was doing a haul video of all of these expensive clothes and bags that she had just purchased. Stuff from brands I simply could not afford for myself. And as I'm watching and becoming more confused by the second because I know how much I deposit in her account each month and it's not enough for all that, she says to her followers, "Hot face, you guys keep asking the S***T I do to afford all this." Giggles. Let's just say that having a pilot brother who's too stupid to look at his bank statements has its perks. He literally thinks this money is being used for career development workshops, lol. #blessed, #familiatum, my stomach fucking dropped. It was as if I were in a sudden decompression at 40,000 feet. I literally couldn't breathe for a moment. I was just sitting at this outdoor cafe in South Beach. Beautiful day, people walking by in swimsuits on the way to the ocean, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I mustered up some weak version of a yes, but could immediately tell that the waiter's concern was justified because all the color had drained from my face. I couldn't even answer him. I went right to my bank app and began scanning recent transactions. Everyone on the call answered to my sister as I had dozens of transfers I didn't remember authorizing. Some I did, of course. I'd given her limited access years ago for emergencies, but many were obviously her doing withdrawals far beyond what we'd agreed. Amounts I'd somehow missed like $200, $500. Even above $1,000, several times a month. Always with memo lines like, emergency, or career workshop, or simply urgent, to get me to believe they were one-offs when I green-lighted them. The worst part? This isn't even the first time she had posted something like this. Furious, I scrolled through her feed until I found at least half a dozen other videos in which she joked about me being her personal ATM, or about how she had me wrapped around her finger financially. One of the 3-month-old videos, she's literally with Mom at a restaurant, and they're laughing about how I work, like a dog, to pay for all this shit. Per Caleb, always with his head and his money in the clouds, my mom says in the video, and they clink glasses of wine. Wine I fucking paid for. I watched that video 4 times and felt sicker each time. The restaurant they were at? I recognized it immediately. It's this super fancy place in Orlando where dinner for 2 easily costs $300 plus. I had never eaten there myself because I always thought it was too pricey. But there they were, ordering champagne and teasing me. The date stamp on the video? My fucking birthday. A day I worked a double shift while they seemingly celebrated with my cash. I was so enraged I could hardly see straight. My leg bounced so violently with rage that the cafe table shook. My first call was to my mom, because surely she didn't understand the depth of what Tara was doing, and surely she'd be just as horrified as me. Her response? "Oh, honey, don't be so dramatic. Tara is just having some fun. You make so much money flying those rich people around. It's not like you'd miss sharing a little. Family helps family." I was speechless, as in truly couldn't string words together. My throat started closing up. I finally spluttered something about Tara stealing from me, breaking into my accounts beyond what I'd allowed. Mom's voice froze. "We had dealt for you to cover her career expenses. Caleb, it's not stealing if it's already promised. None of this was ever agreed to. Ever." But in her mind, my money was their money already. Always had been. I hung up, and I sat in my hotel room thinking I was the biggest idiot on the face of the earth. For an hour, all I could do was stare at the wall, replaying decades of interactions to myself, and seeing them with a whole new perspective. All those emergencies that seemed to arise whenever I said I wanted to save for something for myself. The guilt that they'd make me feel for even thinking about spending family money on myself. Then I called Brad, my co-pilot, because I needed someone who wouldn't BS me. Brad's always been direct with me, too direct at times. Dude has the social finesse of a jackhammer, lol. "About fucking time you noticed, Rainman," was his reply. It seemed everyone could see what was happening except for me. He said that he and some of the other pilots had mentioned it before, how my family seemed to always be getting into my pockets, but it wasn't his place to say anything. Brad said he'd almost spoken up a few times, especially after seeing my mom's new car in the driveway when I was still driving around my 10-year-old Subaru, but he didn't want to overreach. He also reminded me of something I had forgotten entirely. Last year, when we were headed to New York to fly, my mom had called the air traffic control tower and told them there was a family emergency to get me to call her back about Tara wanting money for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which turned out to be a weekend trip to Vegas with her friends. The ATC guys had razzied me about it for weeks. I had been so mortified I had buried the memory. "Do you think Captain Stevens was still pissed off?" Brad asked. "He was going to write you up for that." "And what did you do?" "You told everybody you were sorry and then still bipped your sister the money." He was right. I'd sent $2,000 to Tara from the airport while apologizing to my captain about the disturbance. Oh God, how did I not see the pattern? That whole night I worked out my finances. Overall, I have paid my mom and sister over $175,000 through the past 7 years. That's not counting the $45,000 car or the normal bills I pay, just the emergency money and extra transfers beyond regular support. Money that might have made a down payment on a house, a wedding, a future. Rather, to my sister's shopping addiction and my mom's totally ridiculous expectations. You want to know what's the worst part? When I was checking statements, I discovered my sister had even charged first-class tickets to fly her and some boyfriend I've never met to Hawaii last month on my credit card, despite the fact that I could have arranged discounted tickets through my airline connections. She chose to secretly book full-price, first-class tickets instead. Meanwhile, I list capacity available even off-duty because I'm always looking to save ass. I recalled her posting about that trip. She'd said it was sponsored by a hotel chain. Complete bullshit. I had paid for it all, without even realizing it. I also learned Mom had taken out a personal loan last year for $15,000, using my address and contact info, but thankfully not my SSN. The loan is in her name, but somehow all this went to my email, probably so I wouldn't notice when she inevitably stopped paying it. I looked. She's already 2 payments behind. Now I have alerts on my credit report, just in case. The next morning I awoke with complete clarity for the first time in years. Like that moment when you penetrate cloud cover and suddenly there is nothing but clear blue sky as far as the eye can see. The relief that washed over me was almost physical in its intensity. I could breathe properly for the first time in years. I called my bank and cut off my sister from everything. I canceled all automatic payments on my mom's accounts. I called the landlord for my sister's apartment and informed him that I would no longer be contributing to her rent, effective in 30 days. I literally had to call all the utility companies to have my name removed as the account holder. The customer service rep at the electric company actually said, "Are you sure, sir? Your sister has already called twice this week saying she can't pay." So she knew I was sidelining her and was already trying to work around me. Unbelievable. So I then texted both of them the same message. I know what's been going on. I'm done being used. I will not be contributing anymore. You have 30 days to sort out your finances. I deserve more than to be your ATM. My heart pounding like I was going to make an emergency landing in bad weather. I sat there staring at my phone after I sent those texts. A part of me was scared, but another part, a stronger part one didn't know I had, felt what you might call pride. I was establishing a boundary with my family for the first time in my adult life. It shouldn't have been such a radical action, but it was. It came back immediate and nuclear. I began to receive nonstop phone calls. Texts poured in berating me as selfish, ungrateful, cruel. My mom said I was abandoning family, and my sister oscillated between berating me and sending me sobbing voice notes about how she'd be homeless without me. One message from mom landed especially hard. After everything I sacrificed for you, this is how you compensate me? I sacrificed my life to raise you myself. Like I hadn't been paying her back for years. Because yeah, working myself to the bone to pay for their damn life wasn't repayment enough. Tara had left a voice message that was so manipulative it was borderline impressive. I can't believe you would do this to me, sob, after I've had your back in your career for so long, sob. Remember when I made you that good luck card before your first big flight? Sob, I believe in you, Caleb. Why don't you believe in me? That good luck card, she mentioned. It was a note she wrote out in a hurry and handed me 7 years ago, just before asking me to buy her a new laptop. I blocked both their numbers. Completely turned off my phone for the flight back home to Orlando. When I got off the plane and turned it on again, I had voicemails from aunts, uncles, even neighbors I hadn't seen in ages, each telling me how I'd let them down and how could I do this to my poor mother and sister. Apparently, Tara had mounted a social media tirade, posting tear-stained videos about how her brother had cut me off out of nowhere and how I'm going to get evicted. She even set up this fucking GoFundMe called Abandoned by Family, helped Tara stay afloat, with a $20,000 target. The narrative she's spinning is that I was going to support her influencer career, and then at the last minute I decided I'm not going to do that anymore, and now she has no way to pay rent or buy food. It's all bullshit. Total, complete fabrication. But people are buying it. Last I checked, she had raised nearly $5,000. I flagged the fundraiser, but GoFundMe is reviewing it, whatever that means. And along with that, my inbox is getting flooded with messages from distant relatives and even from some of my friends who are wanting to hear my side of things, as Tara's posts have made it sound like I had some sort of psychotic episode. My mom is telling people I had a mental break because of work stress, and so that's why I'm acting like this. She's reached out to my employer and said she's concerned about my mental health and my ability to fly. Fortunately, my chief pilot knows me well enough to see through this, but it's still mortifying. Captain Stevens even called me into his office just to check to see that I was okay. He took it in stride, but I could sense that he was assessing me to see if I could fly. I had to explain the entire context, including pulling up my bank statements to prove I was not having a breakdown, just finally setting boundaries. Family can be the best co-pilots or the worst hijackers, he said, which is possibly the smartest thing anybody has told me the whole way through this mess. Then finally heard from my mother's neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, who knew me when I was a kid. She told me my mom and sister were thoroughly discussing on the front porch how they're going to have to sell the house that I've been paying the mortgage on for years, and that they might have to go on welfare because of me. And there it is, parked in the driveway, the new car I just bought her in December. They're literally trying to turn the entire neighborhood against me. Mrs. Peterson is in her 70s and typically takes everything my mom says as a matter of fact. So I was stunned when she told me, I don't think what they're saying is right, Caleb. Your mother's always been creative with money. And that sister of yours, I've never seen her work a day in her life. It did, coming from her. At least somebody who's known US for a long time isn't being fooled by their act. I called my lawyer yesterday to find out whether I've got legal recourse against the GoFundMe or against the lies they are telling. He said it was weird, especially since I did voluntarily give them money for years, and that I should probably focus on cutting all financial links correctly before I'm worried about the social media stuff. He is, however, sending GoFundMe a formal letter listing the fraudulent claims, so that's something I guess. Except for my grandpa Roy. He's the only one in the family on my side. He reached out to me yesterday after news of the drama broke and said, some airplanes are just too laden with baggage to take flight. Son, sometimes you gotta dump the load to save the aircraft. That means the world coming from him. His mind remains a pilot's mind, always informing us with aviation metaphors that go straight to the core of the issue. Grandpa also laid a bomb on me. My mom and Tara have been spending money like crazy for years before I started my career. My dad didn't just leave when I was 11. He left because my mom had incurred so much debt in his name that he couldn't take it anymore. I had no idea. All these years I thought he was this bad guy who walked out on us, but turns out the financial abuse has also been my mom's pattern from the get-go. When I first started helping them years ago, Grandpa said he tried to warn me, but I was too guilt-ridden about Dad taking off to listen. "Your father was no saint," Grandpa said to me, "but he didn't deserve what Ellen did to him. And neither do you, son. All these years I have hated my dad because he left, and now I don't know what to think." Grandpa even told me to reach out to him and said he talks to him every once in a while. That's a whole other emotional can of worms I'm not ready to open yet, but someday, perhaps. My sister just posted another teary-eyed video last night about how I'm ruining her career and life. She's claiming I'm forcing her to give up her dream of being an influencer. Completely fabricated, of course. What kills me is, I would have gladly supported her in pursuing any legitimate career path if she had ever shown any real commitment to one. I offered many times. Apparently, actual work interferes with prime Instagram posting time. I'm en route to Anchorage on a flight now. Our charter company flies routes all across the country, and I specifically volunteered for the Alaska route for the subsequent quarter. It's the farthest domestic place my company flies, and I need that distance. Physical and emotional. Brad is with me, he volunteered too. Good dude, and keeps telling me I should have done this years ago. He's sitting right next to me now, reading Reddit over my shoulder, throwing in his own colorful comments about my family, and it's actually made me laugh for the first time in days. Alaska appeared to be just the escape I was seeking. It really is beautiful, it's remote, and it's as close to leaving Orlando's heat, both meteorological and familial, behind as I could get while still taking domestic flights, because the scenery is amazing. This morning, we flew over a glacier of this unreal blue color that made all the stress melt away temporarily. I could literally feel my blood pressure going down as we cruised across those snow-capped mountains. I intend to use this time to reset my finances altogether. Next week, I'm talking to a financial advisor about opening some better savings accounts, even possibly a small place up in Alaska if I end up liking it there. For the first time, I'm also considering what I want, not what my family needs from me. As recently as this morning, I was shopping for hiking gear online, something I have always wanted to try but never had been because every extra dollar was spent on Mom and Tara. Brad's offered to take me out on some trails near Anchorage on our days off. It's bizarre but also thrilling to be planning something solely for my own enjoyment. I feel weirdly light, as if after years of flying through turbulence, I suddenly hit clear sky. It also comes with guilt, because they are my family and I've been trained to think that caring for them falls under the purview of my responsibilities. But mostly I have freedom again, for the first time since I can remember. So that's where I am. Frustrated by their unresponsiveness, I decided at 35 years old to cut the tow line and fly my own path. I was always able to fly alone in the sky, but finally I feel like I can fly in my own life. If you read all this, thanks. Putting it into words did clarify a few things. If anyone else has faced similar family bullshit, I'd love advice on how to stay strong. Every time I end up on the receiving end of one of my mom's flying monkey relatives guilt-tripping me, I feel my resolve slipping a little more. How do you stick to your guns when the whole world tells you you're the bad guy?